happens when a football player turned podcaster who's been on a number one morning sports talk show decides to bring his well-known enemy to his podcast to air out their grievances and patch things up? That's what Cam Newton did with Jason Whitlock. But Stephen A. Smith is not too fond of Jason Whitlock. And now this put Cam Newton in the middle. And if Cam Newton realize what he's doing, he may not be able to be with First Take no more. We'll get to the ladies on the next edition of Viral. Mutual agreement and y'all come to terms and patching up the hatchet, buried the hatchet. Well, that's what Cam Newton did when he invited Jason Whitlock to his podcast and stirred up more controversy as Stephen A. Smith found out and the whole world's talking. Is Cam Newton turning his back on Stephen A. Smith and moving on his own? We get it right here, right now on Viral. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Viral. I'm your host, as always, Kendrick Dix here. Glad you can join us here on Viral. We talk about Cam Newton invited Jason Whitlock to his podcast, but them two have been feuding for some time. Now they buried the hatchet. Now Stephen A. Smith isn't too happy about that and believes, some people believe that Cam Newton has turned his back against Stephen A. Smith and moving on his own. We'll get in a minute. Here on Viral, we talk about Cam Newton, who's a regular on First Take on Stephen A. Made some shocking results last week when Cam Newton brought Jason Whitlock, a known critic of Cam, to bring on the show to air things out between them, and then they came to a mutual agreement. Stephen A. Smith, on the other hand, believed Jason Whitlock is a hamster. Well, let's hear what Stephen A.'s response to Jason Whitlock right here, right now.
But you're jealous. Because you see, the career that you say that I have that's fraudulent, no wonder you keep going back to shit from 40 years ago when I was playing basketball in high school and I tried to play in college. I've been the first to tell anybody, please, I couldn't shine these players' shoes. How does it feel to know, Jason, that you're still not better than me? You have never heard me say what I'm about to say about anybody in this business, because I don't talk about my colleagues and my contemporaries that way. I want everybody to get theirs, but I have whipped your ass. You're a columnist, I'm a columnist. You're a New York Times bestseller? No, you're not, but I am. Television ratings on ESPN, we're approaching 14 consecutive years of being number one in the mornings. But in the end, what it comes down to is you're not cutting it. You started a podcast 2 years before me. The day that I started a podcast, you had 322,000 subscribers. You were at 322,000, I was at 0. You haven't even hit 600,000 yet. I'm at 1.35 million. See, Jason, you keep losing to me. You're not telling people what really hurts you. You keep getting your ass kicked by me. You do a television show, I outrate you. You do a radio show, I outrate you. You go to podcast route, I outrate you. Why am I mad at him? Ladies and gentlemen, I dropped the ball. You know, I got up because I wanted to sit in front of the camera and I wanted to make sure he looked at a suit he never has a snowball's chance in wearing. You know, you're somebody that was critical of Cam Newton, along with numerous other people in the past. You were talking about how they dressed and how they looked and all of this other stuff. And I'm sitting there thinking about the cruelty that you exercise when you talk about so many people And for some reason, it escaped me what the real problem is. Until I saw you on Cam Newton. Before, I just thought you were evil, bro. I just thought you were evil.
Stephen A. Smith doesn't have no love lost to Jason Whitlock. Jason Whitlock doesn't either. Look at this.
Truth is a heavy burden. It might be the heaviest burden.
Want the truth? You can't handle the truth.
Stephen A. Smith taped another 30, 40-minute stream attacking me, name-calling me fat, cracking jokes. He's starting to GoFundMe and all that.
Nice studio. Something you can't afford. Fat Bastard Lock. That's the title of the GoFundMe account.
Where my money, nigga? Man, I gave Aaron your money.
He thinks that I'm motivated by jealousy.
There's levels to this. And your ass is smaller than a cockroach compared to me.
I'm not motivated by jealousy. I'm not jealous of Stephen A. Smith. If I'm jealous of anybody, it's Rich Paul. Rich Paul's dating Adele. I love Adele. She's got the greatest singing voice in the world.
Never mind, I'll find someone like you.
Stephen A. Smith? Jealousy? No dice.
Jason Whitlock is so addicted and fixated on me.
My problem with Stephen A. Smith is that I value truth. The truth matters to me, particularly in journalism.
And the truth shall set you free.
I tell the truth about myself. I hold myself to the exact same standard that I hold Stephen A. Smith to. And listen, you guys know I gamble. I'm not hiding from that because I was fat. I presented myself as a fat person. And there's a stereotype about fat people that they're lazy. That's on me.
Me hanging out in strip clubs and banging strippers. Demonic.
I tell all kinds of uncomfortable, not flattering truths about myself on this show constantly. I can handle it. Real men can handle the truth. Stephen A. Smith, not a real man.
Neither man don't like each other. Neither man don't respect each other. But then Cam Newton comes into the picture. Cam Newton, who was a regular on First Take, jumped in, put his 2 cents in, invited Jason Whitlock to his podcast. They're out there dirty grievances. Let's take a look at what Cam Newton and Jason Whitlock was talking about. And then here's Cam's response.
I saw the Cam Newton interview.
In 4th grade, got held back because they thought he was retarded.
Okay, see y'all later.
He's fraudulent.
People been talking smack, and I'm in the kind of mood where I want to exhale and check some sorry bastards.
He's lying about his college basketball career.
I'm letting it fall, man. I'm letting it grow, because I'm in the mood. I'm in a very, very good mood to express myself.
If I catch you at an NBA Finals playing solitaire, I think you're gay and don't like basketball.
God, come on, with my God,
You pushing it.
You asked, Cam!
working with Stephen A. Smith, and I see how people attack him. He is the peak of the spear in sports journalism, whether we want to agree with it or not. How he got there is his story to tell.
You can't fuck with me, Jay. There's levels to this, and your ass is smaller than a cockroach compared to me. You're nothing. I'm better than you. The public says it. Everybody knows it. I have whipped your ass. You a New York Times bestseller? No, you're not, but I am. Television ratings on ESPN, we're approaching 14 consecutive years of being #1 in the mornings. You don't have a job. Fox don't want you. ESPN don't want you. ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, they don't want you. You don't have a job. You lean on Christianity. That's what Blaze Media does. Do you understand, Jason Whitlock, that you have done the equivalent of literally getting on your knees right in front of me? That's how desperate you sound, talking about me all the time. I have whipped your ass. You can't touch me, bro. You do a television show, I outrate you. You do a radio show, I outrate you. You go to podcast route, I outrate you. Nothing works for you. I look better, I feel better. You looked so pathetic, it had me wondering. He must be in really, really dire straits. So I decided to do something about that. Fat Bastard Lock. That's the title of the GoFundMe account. You lost, bro. Whitlock. I know it hurts. All this shit you talking, cause I have whipped your ass in this industry. You are nothing. That's why you hide in Nashville. Damn near scared to come outside. Cause you know the shit you've done to people. You know it was foul. You know it was lies. You know it was vicious. You know it was ungodly. But you don't care, cause you're you. You talk about how many careers you've tried to squash? No, you don't talk about that. You say, I'm doing God's work. It's like, I don't care what people think. It's about me and him. So you went on your knees and prayed for those headlines. God. You have no ethics. You have no morals. Oh, by the way, did you know I was just honored Personality of the Year, Broadcast Associations of America?
Tension in sports media. Okay, we got some beef going down.
Angus, USDA Prime. You cannot allow people to come on your platform and you control how it goes. Allow people to speak their piece, not controlling what they say. I'm extremely cool with Stephen A. I had no problem with how he handled this situation. I don't think a lot of people understood the brilliance of Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith understands the value of garnering attention. What did Stephen A. Smith do earlier that day?
Oh, he leaked a video saying, I'm about to get back at him.
But did he do it on First Take?
No, he did it on his own platform.
Used the First Take's platform to say, hey, I know what y'all waiting on.
But he did too. He went on Twitter, X, and then he did it on First Take.
He's putting on a masterclass, ladies and gentlemen, of how to leverage and to garner attention. He knows that he's been the #1 morning show, sports show, for 14 years and running because he knows what gets people riled up. And I know Stephen A. Smith is not everybody's favorite, but it should be. Why? Because he is one of us. When you start to question the impact that Stephen A. Smith has had in media, not just sports media, in media, it's been something that has allowed doors to be open for myself, for Shannon Sharp, for Ryan Clark, for Chris Broussard, for so many journalists and African-American personalities. Because now they're relatable because it works, because Stephen A. has made it work. Everybody has a platform now, and I love that because you can control your own narrative. What you, the consumer or the viewer, can control if you give them the view.
People get on me, I show your career this, your career that, and I hear them. But like, what was hard for me is people who literally didn't make it to the league.
When you start to talk about player-only takes, it murks the judgment of, okay, well, there's only one way of looking at it. Journalists can't talk about it because they didn't play. If that means you only can talk about the sport that you played. I can't talk about basketball. I can't talk about baseball. I can't talk about women's sports. I can't talk about hockey. I can't talk about... You don't have to be a perennial all-pro just to have a good take or a good point. Whoever's listening to sports takes needs to understand and have a broader approach to how they digest, process, and download their information from what somebody's saying. I think Pat McAfee is extremely brilliant. Pat McAfee was a punter, a kicker. So he ain't play quarterback, but he got one of the top shows that's out right now in sports.
Facts.
Like, let's make sports talk debate again.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day,
It's all entertainment.
Like I said, Cam Newton really get into a lot of trouble. Even Ryan Clark, or First Take regular, saying that this is unsportsmanlike, unlawlike from Cam Newton to do this. But a lot of people are speculating that Cam Newton want to branch out and be like the next Pat McAfee rather than Stephen A. Smith.
I'm saying it right now. Cam Newton got a whole new audience. Because let's be honest, Cam Newton's core audience is not going to go watch Jason Whitlock. But Jason Whitlock's audience is going to go watch Cam. Why? In the heat of that interview, Jason Whitlock never really got agitated. He never really got amped up, except when he started talking about Stephen A. Smith. But go back and count the amount of times he complimented Cam Newton. You go watch that video, guys. He said Cam Newton could have been the next Michael Jordan. And when he broke down the owner of the Carolina Panthers being removed and how that changed for Cam Newton, how Cam came in as clean cut Cam Newton and all this kind of stuff. See, guys, we making it about the dress. What Jason Whitlock just let Cam know is what I've been saying about Cam. I don't get caught up in Cam's dress and all that kind of stuff. But I will tell you guys this. Your dress will determine if your way gets easier or if your way gets harder.
Ryan Clark made a tweet that says, that states, if someone bring you on their show at least twice a week, you don't bring their known enemy on your show and let them talk ejesta about the guy who brings you on their show at least twice a week. Now, Ryan Clark is referencing the fact that Cam Newton brought Jason Whitlock on his show, and Jason Whitlock started talking ejesta about Screaming A. Smith. Now, I agree with Ryan Clark if that's your boy. If that's truly your partner, if that's your dog, if that is truly your dog, you don't bring someone you know that hates him and that's going to down talk him and dog him and give them a platform on your show. If that's truly your dog now, if that's your partner, you don't allow that to happen. Because right here in Memphis, me and Penny Hardaway been like brothers since 1991. And a lot of local media like to disparage him and talk trash about him. If they expect me to do it, it ain't gonna happen because that's my dog. I don't give a damn what they see or how they look if I try to say supportive things about him or I try to joke with him. You just don't do that. That's if it's his dog. But Cam Newton had Jason Whitlock on his show, which I would never have Whitlock on any show I have. I would never want to go on his show because he's a self-hating dude who's overly righteous and likes to hide behind his religion of some of the most vile and disrespectful things he says when he only attacks mainly magically melanated people. I don't rock with him at all. I wouldn't have him on my show, but Cam Newton decided to have him on his show. And Jason Whitlock commenced to talking about Screaming A. Smith. Screaming A. Smith went back at him, which he was supposed to, and he really threw a shot at Cam Newton like, damn, dog, you gonna have the man on his show and let him talk crap about me, and you ain't gonna try to refute none of that or at least ask questions. And I'm with Screaming A. Smith on that. That's if they're partners. But they might not be partners like Screaming A. Smith may think. But Cam Newton, it's his right to have whomever he wants on his show. And Cam Newton may be thinking that he might not be on First Take when football season comes back around. So he's just going all out. But I feel where Ryan Clark is coming from, but at the same time, you know, Screaming A. Smith can fight his own battles. He went on a whole soliloquy going off. But you don't do that if somebody your partner. But that's not a partner move. But it's his right to do it. But that's for them two to figure out. But of course I want to give my thoughts on it. All praises to the Most High.
This is what it's all about in the media. It's not about beefing with each other on the internet. It's not about just going at each other's throats on the internet for, you know, reckless views and reckless publicity. Sometimes it's about sitting down and even if you agree to disagree, having a long and elaborate talk. And guess what? Getting each other's talking points out of the way and seeing what the other person's side of the story is. And that is exactly what happened on 4th and 1 with Cam Newton and Jason Whitlock. I thoroughly enjoyed this interview, and it just goes to show you, sometimes you need to have that one good talk with people that you don't agree with. Sometimes that is the talk that you need. And for Cam Newton to bring Jason Whitlock on his platform and let him tell his side of the story about a lot of different things and a lot of different views that he has, that's commendable by Cam, because a lot of people would not do that, which Jason Whitlock said himself in so many ways. Now, granted, I will have to let you watch the interview in order to give you some more insight, but I very much encourage you to watch it because it's one hell of an interview, one hell of a back and forth. And they talk a lot of good things, a lot of bad things, and a lot of things that's in between. One of the good things that I'm glad Jason Whitlock brought up was his time at the Kansas City Star, because a lot of people these days, including myself, and yes, I'm guilty of that, stated that he only criticized black superstars. back when he was at the Kansas City Star and he was at the paper, he was strongly criticizing Marty Schottenheimer, Bill Peterson, and Scott Pioli and the entire front office. It wasn't just the players that he was criticizing. He was criticizing the general managers, the coaches in the front office a hell of a lot more than the players. So I'm glad that he brought that up because I did some research, and yeah, they was just picketing to get him the hell up out of Kansas City. Although that is a long time ago, I can see where his argument is at this point. And I'm glad I was able to see some of the things that he was saying. But big ups to Cam Newton for having him on his platform, man. I was glad I saw that interview. And like I stated, sometimes, a lot of times, I mean, every time I would say, it's not about beefing, going back and forth on the internet. It's not about going back and forth, going for each other's head in the media. Sometimes all you need is a good sit down to hear each other's side of the story. Hell of a job to both of these gentlemen, man. And I'm not a big fan of Jason Whitlock. I will say that. I've said that all the time. But I commend him for having the courage to go on Cam's platform, and I commend Cam for bringing him on his platform. Hell of an interview, man. I enjoyed it.
And you know how that goes. It's kind of like you don't see this coming, but you could see it coming. But Cam Newton proved to show that he's on his he wants to be independent on his own, which is true. But if a man, I don't know, like I said, it's his platform. He can invite whoever he want to invite, but at the same time, you know, you should also listen to the man that brought you to the dance. Because if Stephen A. Smith really didn't want to be around you, he wouldn't fool around you. But now this causes jeopardy for Cam Newton. We'll see on what's going to go down between Stephen A. and Cam Newton and Whitlock, how all this is going to progress. We'll see how that's going to go, but it's kind of looking tricky. Thank you all for watching this edition of VAR. I've been your host, Kendrick Dixon. So long. We'll see you next time for another edition of VAR.